So this is Geralt and his like uncle or whatever cracking.
His uncle.
I don't remember who he is.
6,
Okay, we're shutting the stream down.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
What is up, y'all? How's everybody doing? My name is Keegan Larwin, part of Carpe Ludos, and I'm here with a very special live stream. I'm joined today by arguably maybe the leading voice, one of the leading voices right now in the Witcher TV show community, creator of the Howling podcast and creator of the Lore Party Podcast Network, and head of content at Carpe Ludos, Abu Zafar. Abu, welcome on.
Thank you so much for having me, Keegan. I'm honored, and you caught me mid-tweet. What bad timing. I'm just typing out, catch me live on the Carpe Ludos channel.
There's literally a countdown. You had time.
I had plenty of time, in fact. Yeah, it was all on screen. I knew exactly how much time I had, and I still biffed it. So
well, it
here
happens.
we are.
I also was caught off guard by my own countdown, so...
So I see we're playing Witcher 3 here.
Yeah, so I have Witcher 2, but let's not kid ourselves. If we're going to play a Witcher game, we're going to play the Witcher 3.
We're going to play 3, yeah. Yeah, it's got to be 3.
Cool, so...
Yeah, arguably the most important RPG of the decade.
I am honestly inclined to agree with you. Like, it's...
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, RPG, yes. If we were just judging this on an open world game, I think there's an argument to be made for like Minecraft or Skyrim, but RPG,
sure, yeah.
I think that's a good Switch controls, man.
So what's your background with The Witcher?
So my background is the Witcher 2 game. My friend Jake was like, "Yo, you got to play this game. It's sweet." And I played it, and I didn't understand a single thing that was going on. And I beat it, and I was like, I don't know what I just played, but it was pretty cool. And then this game came out, and everyone was like, dude, you have to play it. It's like the best RPG of all time. And I was like, all right. And then I played it. And I'm not going to lie, I hated it for maybe the first like 7 hours of the game. But it warmed up to me. And eventually, by the end, I was like, damn, this is actually this is pretty dang good.
Yeah. Once you get past that like first tutorial area, that's when the game opens up. It's White Orchard that can really turn some people off.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, I'm gonna start. What does any of this mean? Smooth ride. No tutorials. Abu's my tutorial.
Hell yeah! I'll teach you how to be a Witcher.
All right.
I've slayed a few monsters in my time.
All right, so I still don't really know what's going on in this game, so especially for this beginning part, you're going to have to let me know what the heck is going on.
Oh, hell yeah. Do we have a spoiler policy here? Am I allowed to talk about anything?
You should talk about anything. Oh my God. Anything that happens in this game, I think is pretty much fair game. If you haven't played The Witcher 3 by now, you're like 4 years late to the jump.
Yeah, you're 4 years late to the best RPG ever. And also, notably, everything that happens in the Witcher games is officially not canon, so...
Oh, so...
I can't really spoil anything from the books or the TV show, actually, because, well...
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. All of this takes place well after the TV show anyway, so...
Gotcha. So this is Geralt and his, like, uncle or whatever... cracking.
His uncle.
I don't remember who he is.
Okay, we're shutting the stream down. This is unacceptable. I was unaware, Keegan, how completely oblivious you are about Witcher lore.
There are gonna be a lot of gems in this. All right, so this is Yennefer, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
This is Yennefer. So I will say that I am actually watching this stream on my iPad here, so I might be a couple of seconds behind you. Yeah, there'll be a bit of a delay, but yes, Yennefer is also on my screen right now, and this cutscene that we're seeing is the invasion of Nilfgaard. Effectively, the Nilfgaardians have invaded the north for the third time in recent memory, and Yennefer is involved in that conflict, and we're flashing back to Geralt and Vesemir, who is his uncle, is not actually his uncle, is his father figure and also his mentor. And the two are effectively trying to track Yennefer's footsteps. And we're flashing back and forward in time here. And she does a really dope thing. I mean, you can speak to some of the visual effects here.
Oh no, I mean this cutscene.
To me, this is a beautiful cutscene. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very well done. Unlike certain parts of the TV show, but we'll get into that. We'll get into it.
All right, I got to finish composing this tweet. I'm live right now on the Carpe Ludos channel. Hashtag.
Oh, so what's like the significance of the raven?
The raven is just sort of her mark. It's her sigil, I suppose. Like if we want to talk in like Mandalorian speak, the raven is just Yennefer's sigil. It doesn't really play a role in the books or the TV show. It's just an aesthetic choice in the games, I believe.
Gotcha. Great cutscene. Your explanation actually made it a lot better, because when I was first watching it, I was like, what of this do I need to know? Because I don't know anything. Also, this is an iconic entrance for Geralt here.
Yes. Oh, yes. I forgot about this opening scene. I've been meaning to, once we wrap up Wind's Howling and we're done consuming and over-consuming the show every week, I'm planning on just doing like a nice, fun, relaxed replay of this game.
You should.
Because it's been like over a year since I've played it. I beat it like a year ago. Oh, yeah.
I have yet to play, what is it called? Iron and Wine? Or what's the expansion?
Yeah. The expansion, there's two, yeah. There's Blood and Wine and there's Hearts of Stone.
Yeah, Hearts of Stone. Both are incredible. Hearts of Stone, I think, was better than the base game, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I thought both of the expansions were better than the base game.
Yeah, the Blood and Wine, I want to start it. I started it way too early and got wrecked the first time. And then
yes, it's
I kind of like dropped The
game.
Witcher 3 for a while. But now that like The Witcher is like in right now, I'm like kind of itching to get back into it. And like I have a whole expansion I haven't played yet. So like now's the perfect time.
Yeah, Keegan, that's like a whole 20 to 30 hours that you're missing out on still. Like, you're basically missing out on an entire Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blood and Wine is spectacular. I won't say anything about it since you haven't played it, but the fairy tale aspect of it was just so much fun.
I'm very excited.
And the Witcher stories, of course, are like notoriously about Grimm's fairy tales and turning them on their head and giving them like a Polish twist. So
extremely Polish twist. I'm sure I'll see some. I have seen some stuff that's reminiscent of my nearby Slavic and Baltic culture, which is cool.
Yes, that's right. Shouts to Latvia.
Yeah, shout out to little tiny Latvia, wherever you are. All right, so this is still Yennefer, right? That we're hanging out with.
Do you not recognize that ass, or?
I mean, it's all just polygons, dude. That's all I see when I play these games, just polygons and textures.
Just polygons and lighting and textures, yeah. No, yes, this is still Yennefer, and this is just a dream that Geralt is having while he's asleep under that tree with Vesemir.
Oh, right. I don't think I knew that when I was first playing this. I think I was just what timeline are we in?
Yeah, it's like played off like a flashback, but it's only sort of a flashback. There
Gotcha.
was a point in time where a younger Ciri lived in Kaer Morhen with Geralt, but Yennefer wasn't involved. She was never there. So
Gotcha.
this is really just a dream sequence.
So I know there's a stuffed horse, and I don't remember what significance it plays, but I thought it was here.
It's not here. It's later in the game in Skellige, on the island of Skellige, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, it does. It's later in the game when you reconnect with Yennefer and you guys go on some adventures together and you rekindle some old passions. And the significance of the stuffed horse is basically that it's a adventurous sexual fetish for Geralt and Yennefer. They like to have sex on the stuffed horse.
That's hilarious. Also, as I look out over this landscape, I'm like struck by, I forgot just how immaculate the environmental art is in this game. It's just like
beautiful,
utterly perfect. Like from the design to like the color and the post-processing, it's like unmatched.
And I mean, question for you, like none of this is rendered. I imagine like all of that we're seeing back there is just like a plate, like a...
Well, the trees back there are definitely probably sprites. They're just like little tiny planes with an animation on them. But yeah, this like mountain is definitely a few different like geometry pieces. It's just super low poly with a nice texture on it. But way back there, I mean, if you look far enough, you probably can't see on your screen because of the compression, but from my perspective on this 1440p screen, like on the horizon, it's not looking too hot. You can like kind of see the crunchy seams, but like this, you're just like so distracted by just the artistry of the frame that you don't really notice all of the, like you notice these like clouds like rolling off this peak up here. Like that's just insane attention to detail.
Yeah.
Just so good.
That's what happens when you make your development team crunch their asses off.
Make prettier art. Wow.
Hashtag unionize video game industry.
Yeah. Endorse that 100%. All right, so what am I doing here? I thought I was going to be able to
you're wasting time here is what you're doing. You're just looking over Kaer Morhen. You got to go back and you got to go downstairs. You got to make your way down.
Gotcha. All right, here we go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Witcher show. Now, for those who don't know, obviously you are the host and creator of a podcast that kind of talks about the show. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes, sir. So 2 years ago now, we're coming up on 2 years actually, I started the Lore Party Podcast Network with a small group of friends. And this network is a group of shows that is dedicated to celebrating and dissecting and discussing video game stories that have affected us and stayed with us over the years and that have become a part of who we are as people. And obviously, The Witcher is something that I'm obsessed with. I'm a huge fan. I've read all the books, and The Witcher 3 is one of my top 3 all-time favorite games of all time. So we've done a couple of Witcher episodes on the Lore Party show proper. And with the announcement of the Netflix show, we decided, hey, we don't necessarily cover TV, but The Witcher is tangential enough that I think we have an audience here and that we should talk about the show. I certainly wanted to geek out about it. And my co-host, Brett, somehow a bigger fan of The Witcher than me, he wanted to geek out about it too. So we decided to launch Wind's Howling. It's been a pretty good success. We launched it 3 weeks ago. I flexed some journalistic muscles and I reached out to contact at Netflix and they gave us early screeners. So we actually had access to the first 5 episodes like a month in advance.
So dope.
Which was dope. Yeah, I did not expect an answer, let alone for them to say yes. I must have flexed the right muscles or done something right. But we got those screeners. We had a bunch of episodes prepped in advance, and we dropped episodes December 20th, the same day the show came out. So we have now 4 episodes out. Or excuse me, the 4th episode is actually coming out in a couple of days. We just recorded episode 5 today, and we're going to be going episode by episode of the Netflix show and breaking down everything in that episode and really deep diving into it. So if you're a fan of after show podcasts, or if you're just somebody who's new to The Witcher and wants to learn more, we aim to be that guiding voice and that expert voice that really introduces and expands the Witcher universe for newcomers and longtime fans alike.
Great. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to know. And I mean, I already knew some of it, obviously, but it's like it's good to hear exactly, you know, what it is and what you can expect to get into. Now, for me personally, I've only seen the first 2 episodes of the show, so I don't even know how much of the show is out. Did they release it all so far?
Yes, yeah, it was a binge drop, so they released the entire first season. The first season is 8 episodes long, and they're all roughly 40 minutes to an hour. So it's a show that's quite easily binged in a weekend if you can commit to it.
Gotcha.
If you can get over some of the obvious budgetary restrictions in the art department.
Well, I gotta say, I watched the first 2 episodes, and going into it, I was like, oh, I'm sure I'll be fine. Like, I can figure this out. I've played 2 full Witcher games before. I've put tons of hours into Witcher content. Let me tell you, when I watched that show, I was straight up lost. I knew who 2 of the characters were. I knew Geralt and I knew Ciri, or Cirilla, or whatever her actual name is. And
yeah,
that was literally it. Everything else, I was like, I've heard the word Nilfgaard. I don't know what it means. I don't know who they are. I don't know what's going on. So I literally had to go listen to the podcast to be like, all right, what is going on? What is this show? And it's been instrumental in just understanding like the fundamentals of what's going on.
And that's the feedback we've gotten from a lot of our listeners. We're getting tweets and emails almost daily at this point from people that are like, I was so confused watching the TV show. I knew I wanted to watch it. I was interested at the very least. And listening to Wind's Howling, listening to your podcast, really like explained it. Because the show is pretty inaccessible, you know? Like imagine jumping into Game of Thrones without any prior context and also trying to figure out 3 separate timelines from 3 different seasons. Like, that's basically what you're jumping into with the Witcher show on Netflix, and it's quite difficult to parse that without some sort of explainer. I hope they do a better job in season 2 of sort of hand-holding, especially for new viewers.
Right. I mean, I would honestly go so far as to say that, like, the show is made more watchable by the podcast. Like, I would almost have to pair them together. Because honestly...
Can I quote you on that in my statement to Netflix?
Put it on the box. Yeah, be like, play us after every episode so people know what the heck they just watched.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, but at the same time, I think I will say there are people who have been introduced to The Witcher who never would have before, right? The books were never truly mainstream. They're huge in Poland. They're relatively big in Europe, but they haven't exactly crossed the pond and made as big a splash here in the States. And that is hopefully going to be changed and has been changed already to some extent from the Netflix show. The names Geralt, Yennefer, Ciri have at least seeped into the zeitgeist and into the sort of mainstream consciousness more than they were, you know, even a year or 2 ago before the show was announced. So to that extent, the show has introduced people to the world. Hopefully they will pick up the books and enjoy the books, and hopefully they'll pick up this incredible game that we're playing and play through it as well, because it's really a world that needs to be enjoyed.
Totally. And I've seen people like on Instagram and on Facebook, like watching this, people who I would never have affiliated anything relating to The Witcher with before watching this show. And I think you're right. Like Game of Thrones was kind of like the gateway drug for a lot of people. And it's almost like it's the perfect time for the show to come out when you think about it.
Yeah. And the books are sold out. I was like, you know what? I should probably own the box set, right? I'm a big enough fan that I should own the box set. I checked Amazon last week and that shit sold out.
Wow, that's insane.
So it's clearly having an impact of some sort, and I'm glad so many other people now get to experience this thing that I've loved for years. It's very exciting. And I'm glad I can correct people and let them know that Yennefer is nobody's uncle.
Yeah.
all Witchers are sterile. They can't have children.
Wait, you're telling me this uncle guy's a Witcher?
Yes.
I'm kidding.
He's a mentor. He is the Obi-Wan Kenobi to Geralt's Anakin Skywalker.
Witcher 1 Knicher, they say.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
he looks up to him. He's a father figure. He's a mentor.
So let's dial this back a little bit, and for people who like maybe haven't watched the show yet, and are kind of nervous about it, but now know that they have this podcast. Can you just describe for them a little bit, like what is The Witcher? Like what is it as,
I can.
as a thing?
After I tweet that, hold on, I'm gonna actually tweet now. Because if I wait any longer, I'm going to have to redo the tweet to be like, hey, I did a thing an hour ago. You should go watch it. So I'm going to try and get this tweet out while we're still live. Okay, I'm live right now on Carpe Ludus, talking all about The Witcher and Howling. Tweet.
Wait, you still haven't finished the tweet?
No, I was composing it.
And I just distracted you that much?
Yes. That's a loaded question, Keegan, trying to summarize The Witcher and trying to introduce people to the world. But
I mean, let's start from like, I just watched Game of Thrones. I was maybe a little disappointed by the end of the season, and I'm looking for another fantasy. Okay, I'm trying to be mild here, and I'm trying to dive into a new fantasy series. What should I know about before I jump headfirst into this massive franchise?
Gotcha. Okay, so the first thing you should know is that The Witcher is not about to fill some season 8 sized hole in your heart that Game of Thrones might have left. I think a lot of people are coming to The Witcher expecting it to be Game of Thrones, and they're two totally different beasts. I think the tones are slightly different. Yes, they're both quote unquote dark fantasy franchises, right? But Game of Thrones is much more about political intrigue. It's about its characters. It's about its huge cast of characters. And Game of Thrones, I see more as like, here's a giant chess piece with a giant cast of characters who are all working against each other towards some goal. And that includes the White Walkers. And you are here to watch all of these characters, how they play off against each other, and what the political outcomes of Westeros might be. The Witcher is not about that at all. The Witcher is about our central three characters, Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer, and it's about their extremely personal story. Yes, it's a fantasy story. They end up saving the world. They end up defeating a big bad calamity, yada, yada, yada. But at its heart, it's a story about a very small family, family that's not related by blood, but a family that has chosen each other nonetheless, which is very much a fantasy trope, right? The family you choose. And at its core, it's a funny story, you know, like it's a dark fantasy, but it's very comedic. Jaskier, or Dandelion, depending on the translation, is one of Geralt's best friends. He's the bard. You'll see him on the TV show. He's definitely a big presence in the games. And he brings a lot of levity to the show. The show and the games constantly crack jokes. Like, Geralt is hilarious. He might come off as like a gruff sort of anti-hero, but he's honestly like a really funny main character. So expect a lot of moments where you might burst out laughing. And it's going to take a lot of classic fantasy stories, you know, and give them a darker twist, but a twist in a way that will probably also crack you up. So I think comparing it to Game of Thrones is dangerous territory, and expecting Game of Thrones is even more dangerous territory. Come in with a fresh heart, a clear heart, an open perspective, and come in expecting a show that will make you laugh, that will have wild twists and turns, that'll have characters that are nonsensical and crazy and enjoyable, but at the same time, it's going to have something meaningful to say about family and destiny and choice. So I know I said a lot there, but basically it's not Game of Thrones.
Totally. And I think it's good for people to know. I should also note that this guy's haircut is a complete and utter disaster.
The worst haircut. Yes, a clear example of what I'm saying. Nobody's going to take this guy seriously, and neither should you. The show's not meant to be taken overly seriously.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever watched, there was a show called Legend of the Seeker based on some books that came out in like 2009 or something. And it was like, very similar vibes to The Witcher.
Yeah. Honestly, like, campy is one of the best ways I can describe it. I know that's usually has like a negative connotation. Like, if something is campy, it's probably bad. But the Witcher series is like good campy.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Oh, finally, I'm talking.
That's something you also have to be prepared for in this game. A lot of reading, a lot of talking.
So it almost sounds like this is, instead of Lord of the Rings, this is more a game comparable to, or sorry, instead of Game of Thrones, it's more comparable to Lord of the Rings, where it's very based in mythology, focuses on a small amount of characters, is less about the big world picture and more about kind of like the individual obstacles that each character has to kind of encounter and go through.
Absolutely, 100%. I would very much compare The Witcher to Lord of the Rings when it comes to the story and the style and honestly some of the comedy, right? Like The Hobbit is a children's book. It's full of like hilarious, like slapstick moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And The Witcher is as well. You know, they're dark slapstick moments, but they're there. And I would definitely, yeah, I agree. Much more Lord of the Rings.
So the other thing that I've noticed about this world is it has a huge focus on kind of myths and legends and monsters and witches and stuff like that. It's all kind of just like very central to not only the world, but like the narrative itself. So people who maybe are thinking a lot of fantasy these days kind of has more of like a subtle magic, but the magic in this seems to be very forthright.
The magic is, very present. There's no subtle, exactly. Another difference from Game of Thrones. It's not like subtle magic that's in the background or pops up every once in a while. There are literal mages. There is a literal Hogwarts in this universe. It's called Aretusa, where mages are sometimes captured, sometimes forced against their will, and sometimes willingly go to be trained as sorcerers and sorceresses. So, yes, magic ever present in this world. Geralt uses a minor form of magic where he shoots things out of his hands, like he will either do a force push or he can shoot flames out of his hands and do other various small magical tricks like that. Just because he's a witcher, he's trained in that. Actual magicians can do much more larger scale and sweeping magic. Ever present. There's elves, there's dwarves, a lot of very classic fantasy elements are in the Witcher universe. So definitely be prepared for that. It's not grounded in any sort of realism.
And it's definitely more of kind of like it almost feels like an adult fairy tale, almost like I don't want to say a children's story, but it has a sort of like whimsy to it, you know, even though it's very much an adult story.
Absolutely. Adult fairy tale is such a good way to put it too. That sounds like some sort of weird porno category, but
you're right. I didn't even think about that.
Like the category on Pornhub where they
exactly
only fuck each other in cosplay. But no, yes, adult fairy tale is a good way to like describe the Witcher and what to expect from it too. Definitely. I mean, for example, Geralt, this good-looking hunk right here. He's over 100 years. I think he's about 100 years old here in this game. And Vesemir's like over 200 years old. Like lifespans for Witchers are extended because that's cool.
Oof. I have so much to say about these ducks, but I already said it in my my Art of Games episode. I did.
Oh, nice.
I honestly...
You did one about The Witcher?
Yeah, I should maybe finagle the release schedule so The Witcher one comes out tomorrow
earlier
instead of Bioshock. Because right now The Witcher's hot. I'm actually probably going to do that. But yeah, I did a whole Art of Games episode on The Witcher that'll come out. Screw it. It's going to come out tomorrow.
Hell yeah.
And I'm just talking about the beautiful art in this game. And one of the things I talk about is the like the chickens and geese. It's not like they made one... I'll go faster. There we go. It's not like they made one goose. They made a bunch of different geese. Like each goose has its own little character and its own like subspecies. It's just like the attention to detail is just insane. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's one of the best looking games and it has held up. It was one of the best looking games 4 years ago and it still is today.
Yeah.
it has somehow held up 4 years later against competitors like God of War, which is just like one of the most striking cinematic games I've ever played in my life. And it still holds up to this day, you know? So definitely a beautiful, absolutely gorgeous game. And when the sun sets over the river and you see the reflections like it's about to here, like it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I also did an episode on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which is a little bit newer, and that game borrows so much from The Witcher. But the one big differentiation that I tend to point out is that
should have borrowed some more, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, though from a technical perspective, there's a lot more going on in Assassin's Creed, and it's a lot better in a lot of technical ways. Just the sheer artistry of this game just does so much to surpass any other game. I think I can't speak to that at this point because I still need to play Red Dead 2, which apparently tops this game in environmental design, but I want to be the judge of that. Ooh. So that'll be a future Art of Games episode for sure.
Yeah. I'm just not interested in Westerns, but I
feel you.
I am just intrigued in Red Dead on just like a purely technical
100%.
standpoint. Like I just want to know if it's as good looking and if the design of the game is as great as people make it out to be. But I don't like cowboys. I'm not into that culture.
I
like pirates.
Blown away by how beautiful this is.
Yeah, this is what I was saying. When the sun is setting and you just look out over the river and...
It's just, they did so much went into this, and I talked a lot about it, but it just never ceases to blow me away.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're really in like no man's land right now, right? Like there are later portions of the game where we go to the island of Skellige, which we obviously won't get to here, but there are portions of the game where it is not a war-torn landscape. It is a genuinely beautiful island that is just breathtaking, and it feels like you've stepped into an entirely new game once you get to that portion. It's like sort of mid to late game when that happens.
And that's, I think, maybe the biggest piece of praise I can offer this game is it never gets worse. Like a lot of games, like they save all the cool sequences for the beginning to like try and drive player retention. This game is good. Honestly, I think it gets better the longer it goes. Like the expansions were just so
easily.
Unbelievably good. And like once you exist in this world, like you don't want to leave it.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
All right, well, we'll ride a little bit further here. One of the things I love doing in this game is just riding and just looking at the beautiful environment because it's just so gorgeous. So
although the riding mechanics are quite clunky.
Yeah, what's Assassin's Creed? The one thing they did was they just made like an auto run situation like better than the Witcher's, so you can just like set a destination and it'll like auto navigate there.
Yeah, horse riding so much better in Odyssey for sure.
Wonder if it'll, since we're still in the beginning phase, if it'll make me turn around at some point. Probably not, honestly. This game treats you like a grown-up, so...
Yeah, I don't think you're blocked in on the map, but there probably just won't be any quests or story moments for you outside of this area until you get past this tutorial section.
Yeah, definitely. So, just to like start wrapping up here, let's just talk a little bit about the podcast a little bit more, kind of like, who it's for. I know you gave a big explanation for everything there, but for people now who've just been watching this and are like, okay, I'm intrigued by The Witcher, what are the kind of things that they can expect both from the TV show and from your podcast, not just in current episodes, but kind of moving forward?
Yeah, so from the TV show, you're going to get a lot of origin story stuff. These games take place decades after the events of the TV show, and what you're going to get in the TV show is more along the lines of what you would get from the books. It actually adapts one of the first short story collections from the novels into sort of an episodic TV show. So you'll see a younger Geralt, you will certainly see a younger Ciri, and you'll actually see the origin story of Yennefer, who she is and where she came from, which is an absolutely brand new addition to the canon. That didn't exist in the books. It doesn't exist in the games. It only exists in the TV show, and that in particular, it's only episode 2 of the TV show, so I'm not spoiling anything, but that episode was easily one of my favorites of the entire 8-episode first season. But the first season is out on Netflix now. You can binge all of it, start to finish. And what I recommend you do is listen to an episode and then hop on over to your favorite podcast app and listen to my podcast, Wind's Howling, WIND''S, Howling, and listen to our extremely deep cut analysis. So we try to walk this line between being accessible and also sort of flexing our Witcher knowledge. But my co-host Brett and I dive into each and every single episode of the Witcher Netflix show. We're about halfway through the season now, and we'll be releasing episodes every Wednesday on a weekly basis. So if you want some more context, if you want some more history, if you want to learn how the TV show changed and adapted the books, that is going to be your destination. And sort of our tagline for the podcast from the beginning was, we want to be the premier companion podcast to the show. We want this podcast to be the thing you watch in between episodes of the show. So hopefully you'll learn something from our podcast, and hopefully you'll enjoy the Witcher Netflix TV show. But like I said earlier in the stream, I'm just excited that so many people are being introduced to the world, and the fact that so much Witcher hype is in the zeitgeist right now gets me excited. It makes me want to replay the books, or replay the games and reread the books again.
No, absolutely. And I'm like in the same sphere of like excited that this, like, The Witcher's kind of like, back on everyone's minds, and I'm like thinking of like what weird video I should make for my YouTube channel, because I have obviously my Baby Yoda video coming out tomorrow. Yeah. So I'm thinking of doing like a toss a coin to your Witcher song, but like it has like some horrible glitchy twist. I haven't decided yet. But.
I mean, true, remixes of that song are hot. You do have some musical talents, Keegan.
Yeah, that's true. I could do something like that. I was thinking of making it so like weird and offbeat, but
that is your brand. So
yeah. More and more so every day that passes.
As the days go by and I grow older.
Yeah, my videos only get more avant-garde. Whatever. I don't care. But anyway, circling back to the podcast, I should say that one thing that's great about listening to this show is that Abu and oh my God, I'm totally blanking on it, Brett, both have read the books,
yes,
which the show loosely, more or less, follows, which means you guys both have an incredible wealth of knowledge, and you kind of know what the show's trying to say, even if it didn't say it super well. So you're not really deciphering too much of what the show's saying. You guys you've read the source material.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we have to really walk this fine line of like, did the show completely miss the mark here, or is it trying to say something different, right? Because we don't know what the intentions were behind the scenes, what the showrunner was intending to change and keep the same when it came to the actual source material. And some things are very obvious and clear changes that were intentional, just because the TV show was made for a completely different medium, and you can't adapt a novel one for one straight to a screenplay and then onto the screen. So some changes are intentional, but other changes we're just like left scratching our heads like, why did they change that? And it feels like they totally missed the mark, and the books did this better. So we definitely go back and forth, but ultimately Brett and I are still huge fans of the TV show, and we're huge fans of the original text, and we don't think one is above the other, and we don't hold one sacred above the other. They're both incredible additions to the Witcher canon and to the Witcher fan base.
Right, and speaking from just personal experience, both listening to the podcast and the show has been great so far, and I'm excited to keep listening to the rest of them and watching the rest of the show. I mean, honestly, it's right up my alley. I love fantasy, and so many times it's just done so poorly, but here I think they just really treaded the line of like campiness and like legit actually pretty good show. So I mean, I'm excited to watch the rest of it. I'm excited to learn everything that I didn't learn watching the series through the podcast. And not mistake people like I know Roach, but mistake Uncle Geralt for
right.
I already forgot his name.
Vesemir,
right?
He's so
right.
important. He's like the Obi-Wan of this universe.
I remember how he serves an emotional purpose. I just didn't remember who the heck he actually was, or what his backstory was. Great, cool.
Oh man!
Oh,
and here we are staring out over the river.
I know. One thing I talk about in my show is birds, and they're great. Birds are great in this game. That's all I'll say. They may or not be real, but
Yes, they might
certainly
be a
amazing.
CIA operation.
Exactly, 100%. I'm glad you knew where I was going with that. Like weird lowbrow conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's it for this particular stream. If y'all watching on YouTube like seeing us just talk over games, we'll definitely be doing more of that, whether or not you like it. So buckle up for that. We obviously,
too bad we're here to stay.
Yeah, our spring schedule is well underway. We've got episodes of The Art of Games every other Monday. We've got a special video, The Opposite, every other Monday. Brett's show where he plays Halo, which is hilarious.
Very funny.
Every Wednesday. And episode of The Ride, where I ride my one wheel around New York City, is every Friday. And that's gonna be
good.
That's me going on through May. Honestly, we've got a huge lineup of shows. We got a bunch of creators making shows after that. So appreciate you guys tuning in.
And if I can say one thing, if you are the kind of person that puts on that like lo-fi hip hop study tunes thing on YouTube in the background, put on Keegan's The Ride instead. It achieves the same thing, but you get this dope, incredible view of Keegan just like riding around on his one wheel across New York. I mean, it's amazing to look at, and the music is so on point, and it's just like one of the weirdest, most relaxing things I've ever watched. So put that on while you're doing homework instead.
Yeah, it's super bizarre, but they're fun to make, and they're definitely fun to watch because the 360 camera technology is just like so ethereal that you're like, what is reality?
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Well, that's it for us. Make sure you check out Abu's podcast, Winds Howling. We'll do links in the description, obviously, if you want to find it. Or, Abu, you've got a better way to pitch where you can listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that Winds Howling is available on every and any podcast platform in the world. Just search Winds Howling. You can also just search the words Lore Party, LOREPARTY. All of our shows will show up. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everything in between. So just find us, look for us. And if you want to learn more, you can also check out our website, loreparty.com.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being on the show, Abu. I say show as if I do this regularly. Thanks so much for being on the stream.
Yeah.
People will be seeing a lot more of you probably here and there.
Yes, of course.
We're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes for Carpe Ludos, obviously. So, yeah, that's all I got for today. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. And I will catch you all on the flip side. Thanks.